WHLP 103.5 FM, New Haven's home for community radio. I'm Mubarakah Ibrahim, and this is Mornings with Mubarakah. And we are streaming live on TuneIn Radio as well as newhavenindependent.org. You know you can catch us on just about every social media that you're on, we're on. But we are hyper-local radio, so we're right here in the Beaver Hills section of New Haven, Connecticut, coming to you live on a Wednesday morning, and it is a beautiful day. Yesterday, I was complaining about Connecticut and Connecticut's cold. I'm on Facebook and I'm like, this is just getting too much. I can't take it. And then today, the sky opened up. I'm so looking forward to going outside later. I really am. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I know it's not as warm as I'd prefer, but I will take it over the cold and rain from yesterday. Or snow. I don't even want to mention the S word. Yes, don't say that. Shh, it might hear you. Shh, don't say that. So if it snows this week, I'm going to be. It's Samary's fault.
I didn't do it. I didn't summon it. I promise.
For real. We are here with Samary Agosto-Polnett. Welcome, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Samary is a bilingual therapist and coach. We are talking about Hispanic mental health this morning, and Samary has been in the mental health field for 9 years. Her focus has been working with inner city communities throughout Connecticut with children's and family, with the last few years also integrating adults into her practice. Samary's training includes trauma cognitive behavior therapy, mindfulness, children's yoga, meditation, positive psychology, and life and wellness coaching. Thank you for joining me. I am looking forward to this conversation. I am looking forward to this conversation. I always like to be very transparent because I don't know a lot about the Latino community. And so my first question is going to be probably a question that you might have heard. What is appropriate, Hispanic or Latino?
Honestly, I think it's almost a preference of what someone is saying, and how they're communicating. I think the newer generation, they like to use like Latino and like Latinx and kind of incorporate those other terms. But for me, I'm a little older, so it doesn't matter. I use that in quotation mark, but I'm older than so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Okay, all right.
I'm not offended. I'm personally not offended, either way.
All right, so I will feel better that I'm not offending somebody if I use either term. If I use either term today. So today we are talking about mental health and mental health specifically inside of the Latino community. We know that mental health does not discriminate for age, for gender, nor for your background. And so Samary and her colleagues are bringing attention this month through the Latino Mental Health Fair on the mental health for the Latino community. So when we talk about, so I thought that some relevant information is about 18% of America is Hispanic Latino. Mm-hmm. In New Haven, which is one of the reasons why I love New Haven, we are almost split evenly. So the last census for New Haven, we were 31.5% African American, 30.4% Hispanic or Latino, and 30.3% white alone.
Wow.
I think that's
pretty amazing.
I think that is one of the very unique aspects of New Haven. We are literally like almost exactly 1/3, 1/3, 1/3.
Yes, I didn't even know that. Thank you for sharing that. That's pretty amazing.
Yes. So when we look at I think that because we are a huge, we have such a comparatively to a regular population, such a large population of Hispanic Latino, when we look at the news and we see things that are concerning the Hispanic Latino community, it really does hit home for us here in New Haven because we have so many in our community and more people know them on a personal, know Hispanic Latinos on a personal level. So when we talk about any health issue or any issue that affects the Hispanic Latino community is a concern for all of New Haven. Mental health in particular, mental health, there's a lot of barriers just in general population for people recognizing mental health. And so my first question is, when we talk about mental health, how do we define mental health in itself? And how do we define mental health problems? I put that in quotation.
So I think mental health can be defined as more of like mind, body, and spirit. You know, how you're functioning, how everything is going on for you, how you're being able to problem solve, use the appropriate coping skills, you know, to deal with day-to-day problems, or even problems that are not day-to-day, that are out of the norm, and we have to like address them. And then there's also, you know, more on the severe side of mental health, that things that are like passed down, or like, you know, you have different conditions and different things that affect like your cognitive or neuropsychology, everything of that part in that area. So all of that put together.
How does a person distinguish between kind of like, you know what, I am really nervous about this event that's coming up versus this may be anxiety?
So we are now, I feel like, in an anxiety-prone society. You know, we have everyday things, factors that affect us, and we become very anxious and worried about what's going on. I think that when it becomes more than just a normal, like, I'm nervous about what's coming up or presenting, it's like, if you see a pattern, if you're seeing like every single day that you are struggling with something that's causing you to have like major like anxiety and major like issues about, or when it's stopping you from doing something else, so you're not longer going out because being in that place makes you anxious, you know, or you're avoiding places or things because of how you're going to feel about them.
Okay. So it becomes a problem when it actually interrupts your life.
Yep, and it interferes with what you're doing with a normal day-to-day basis. You know, if you're not able to function, and I use the word normal very loosely because, you know, what's normal per se, but, you know, like being able to go to work or go out with your friends and socialize, or, you know, go to the gym or whatever it is, you know, any of those things, if you're feeling like your day-to-day life is interfered in because of how you're feeling, then it might be more than just like a normal little anxiety going on.
Okay. So particularly for the Latino community, are there any cultural barriers that prevent people from seeking mental health help, or even identifying that they have a mental health problem?
So yes, I personally, like, and I've seen it because I've worked a lot in the inner city communities, especially with the Hispanic population, because I am bilingual. So I'm often, you know, put in situations where I have to be the bilingual clinician. And the barriers come from different areas. I mean, it is a cultural thing. I think in families, it's often taboo to like talk about what's going on in your life and like what's the struggles, and it's better to kind of deal with it on your own versus telling other people your business, because it's being seen as like you're sharing the family like issues, and this is what other people, you know. So I think that definitely puts like a, I don't want to say like a stigma, but it just makes it more people more hesitant to go out and seek the help that they possibly need. And then when it's sometimes imposed on them, because sometimes there's situations that are so big and so large that, you know, other systems and other departments get involved with families, children, etc. So at that point, they require that you access some type of mental health to address the issues that are going on. Sometimes it's looked at very negatively. You know, someone is telling me what to do and telling me that I have to go get help, but I don't need the help because they don't personally see it, or the approach of it. You know, it's all about the communication and how that comes across, and it has to be very explained well to others, and letting them know, like, you know, this is not just because somebody says that you need the help, or etc. Like, how can we really help you function, or like with this problem that you're having?
When it comes to actually being diagnosed with mental health problems, are there any barriers that exist specifically for the Latino community?
So in diagnosing, each client, has a diagnosis for XYZ reasons. There's the DSM-5 that we use as a way to measure like where they are, like what criteria are being met. Sometimes there is an issue because they're not, like, our clients are not always completely honest with what's going on with them.
That cultural is,
yes.
It's in a family thing.
Yes.
And so, okay.
So how you have the iceberg. I know everybody probably has seen like the iceberg, and half of it you can see, and like the other stuff underneath it, like nobody else knows about. That's often what we encounter. So you get like the immediate problem. Something happened. There might be a death in the family, and you're depressed and upset and not able to do XYZ. But sometimes it's even more deeper than that. That might have been like the trigger now, but what else is going on underneath it? It's like what's really going on and what's affecting your overall mental health. And then if we don't know about it, then we really have a hard time addressing it. We have to work harder in the sense of like helping the client understand, what's going on with them, and just helping them be more honest with us. So we can really get to it.
Now, one of the statistics that I read is when people seek mental health in the United States, about 70% of them actually come back and continue with their treatment. But for the Latino community, only about 50% of them come back because they feel a lack of understanding, culture, or language barriers. Have you found that as well? With you, there's no language barriers, but in general.
I work in the practice that we work in. I am the only like Spanish-speaking clinician, and it's surprisingly that there isn't more Spanish-speaking clinicians from Hispanic descent. And I say that because there's sometimes that we have bilingual clinicians but are not necessarily Hispanic background. So that does make a difference. Just because...
What kind of difference is that?
Because, sometimes if you're not... You might not fully understand the culture. You might know a little bit. You might know what you learned in college and what you have experienced right now, but you don't fully like understand. And it also makes it challenging for the client they don't fully trust someone. They don't open up as well because they feel like they're still not a Hispanic person. And
there still this, and I don't know if this is appropriate, but it's my radio show, so I can say it. Right. So on TV, you see like all of these stereotypes around Hispanics have around gringos, right? Is that like actually?
It is. And it's challenging sometimes because, there's a lot of great clinicians that are all different like races and backgrounds, but it's just a challenge more to like connect with that client and to get to like deeper work that the family or the client may need.
So here's an interesting question, just from a clinician point of view. When is it appropriate or is it ever appropriate for the clinician to say, I feel like I'm unable to understand the cultural background that this client comes from, and I need to refer them to someone else?
Absolutely. I think that is actually really beneficial for both the client and the clinician themselves, because one, they're able to recognize, their limits and their areas. There's areas that we all kind of have limits in because we're not experts, or like we know that's not our areas. But there's other people who are more knowledgeable, and absolutely, and I think clients absolutely appreciate that because I feel like it's worse if you're working with a client for 6 to 8 months and then you decide that you're not the person for them because you're not making any progress. They're not making any progress in the right place, the right area, and now you're gonna shift them and tell them to go to somewhere else, and now they have to build rapport and start from scratch again.
So you should know that earlier in the process.
Absolutely. If you know that you are not, or you don't feel like you're capable of enough, and you know that the family has some reservations, please by all means like find someone.
That I can relate to that from a Muslim perspective, and stories that I've heard of Muslims going to therapists, where it's interesting that they aren't familiar with the religion or the culture, but they're so excited to quote unquote learn that it actually inhibits the person from getting the full help that they need, because they spend half of their session actually trying to explain stuff to them. And it gets frustrating.
No, because it becomes more of like I'm all about learning and experiences, but now it becomes more like your client is teaching you, and
Right.
you're like, you know,
and some clinicians will be like, "Oh, this is great. We're both benefiting," and the client is like, "No,"
because you're still going home kind of empty and not finding that solution.
Right.
That
You just went home spent an hour telling her all about your religion instead of your actual issues.
Yes.
Which 9 times out of 10 has nothing to do with the religion.
Exactly.
It's just like, this is my issue. I'm depressed. I can't pay my bills.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. It's funny that you say that because it's so true. I encounter that all the time with like different families, and it's hard. It's hard for someone to come and share their story all over again. Now, like starting again for somebody else. I'm like, okay, now I have to tell you everything that I went through again, and like this is where like things get omitted and like bits and pieces, and now you're really working with a full puzzle, trying to put together like, you know, where did this come from, you know, and then 3 months later you might find something else new, and it's like, okay, well, that changes the whole approach of how we've been dealing with treatment and like what we've been addressing, because that's not what we really have been addressing in the past. So it's harder.
One of the things that everybody knows since this new administration has begun, that there's been much more scrutiny, much more discrimination, and a lot of a lot of attention given to the Latino community. Has that increased mental health problems inside of the Latino community, or how has it affected?
So with the clients that I've seen, you know, with the people that I've interacted with the last couple of years, I'd say that there's been some issues. You know, sometimes we work a lot with, you know, children that are U.S. citizen and born in the United States while their parents are from other countries, and that always poses a question, you know, what's going to happen, what can happen, and when there was a lot of things in the news with is it ISIS? I'm gonna be like ISIS. ISIS. I'm like, I don't even know.
Integration, immigration, something.
Yes. So when they come in, and sometimes coming through like different buildings, and you see it in the news, like, you know, asking people for XYZ and all these things, it poses like a concern for a lot of the families that we work with, because they're like, okay, what's going to happen? Are they going to come here next? You know, they don't have a plan. They don't know what can happen. And that definitely poses a stressor, you know, and an even bigger stressor for the family, because they're already like struggling in different ways. So like, now you have a new stressor. Right. Like something else to add on to that list, and say like, okay.
One of the concerns around Hispanic mental health is having so many of the issues that are already directly connected to mental health issues, such as poverty. So 25% of American Hispanic population lives below the poverty level. In general, when we talk about pay in the American pay scale, Hispanics get paid less than both Black and white women who are less than males, right? So
it's a whole
they're like, right? And so all of that affects mental health. And one of the bigger concerns, I think, for me, as I was reading statistics about mental health, is really the suicide rate, and particularly suicide rate among young people. Do you find that there is any other exacerbating issues that make the suicide rate among the Hispanic young people higher?
I mean, I think it is a combination, like I said, you know, like they're struggling with getting by, even like the minimum is not enough sometimes. And like a lot of pressure is put on sometimes the younger generation, the younger kids. So like as your parents are getting older, you're more now in charge of like the family and like what's going on and like the bills and everything else.
That includes financial responsibility.
Absolutely. So sometimes you have teenagers worried about a light bill or a cell phone bill, or not even a cell phone's a luxury, but like a light bill or food, or like what's going to happen, you know, during the holidays, etc. Like these are things that technically they shouldn't really be concerned with right now because they're teens or they're young, like they're 10, 11, 12 years old. So why are we worried about that? Enjoy life and go to school and come home. But they are, and they know more and more about what's going on in the family dynamics and how that's affecting the entire family, so it affects them.
Mm-hmm. One of so some of the statistics around Hispanics is the death rate for suicide for Hispanic men is 4 times the rate of that of Hispanic women. So men are having a much harder time. And in 2017, suicide was the second leading cause of death for Hispanics ages 15 to 34. Suicide attempt for Hispanic girls grades 9 to 12. This was a shocker for me. Suicide attempts for Hispanic girls grades 9 to 12 was 40% higher than for non-Hispanic white girls in the same age group. So the girls, young girls, are having the hardest time, it appears, from the statistics. Is that what you see in your practice?
I see a mixture of everything, and I'm going to tell you why. Because so here's the thing. I mean, boys and males in general, like how they deal with their feelings and emotions is different as girls and women do it overall, like across the board. So I think that often girls are in Hispanic communities. I mean, we're evolving, we're getting better, but women are not always the ones who are like making the decisions all the time, especially if there's a male in the house. They're the ones who are like making more of the decisions, you know. Then you go into like the single moms and everything else, but that's a different branch. And then sometimes when you have single moms, also that trickles down, like if they have daughters, they're the ones who are now like in charge of the house while the mom goes out to work, and like they're taking care of and helping taking care of like the family. So I think there's a lot of pressure in general for the kids and the teens, like as a whole, to just contribute to the family. And like we all know, like it takes a village to raise a family, but sometimes it's a lot. Like you know, you're responsible for your younger siblings, to take care of them, make sure that they do their homework, you know, while mom or even sometimes mom and dad are out of work just to make like ends meet and barely make it. You know, worried about getting evicted or not having a place to go or having to go to shelter, or already sometimes even living in shelters.
So it sounds like in the Hispanic community, young people are forced to grow up far earlier than they should be. Right? So those things that we consider adulting is being a teen.
You start adulting when you're like 9, 10 years old.
Wow.
I mean, it sounds, and that's not everyone, but you know, that's just like what you see a lot of because of everything else that's going on around them and like the circumstances. And sometimes you don't have family near you, so you can't rely on like your grandparents or your aunts and people who are not around. You know, if they're not around, then who are you gonna trust and who are you gonna use to like help you?
If you're just tuning in, you're listening to WNHHLP 103.5 FM, New Haven's home for community radio. We are streaming live on TuneIn Radio, right from the Beaver Hills section of New Haven, Connecticut, and we are talking to Samary Agosto-Polnett, who is a bilingual therapist and coach, and we are talking about mental health in the Latino community. Like, I think I'm just gonna like, every time I read it, it says Hispanic Latino. So I'm just gonna like double it so I can make sure I just
Hispanic Latino.
Hispanic Latino. I was trying to use one. I was trying to use one, but I think I'm just gonna have to use both of them. So another thing that I thought that I was personally curious about is one of the, in my research for this show, it talked a lot and from several areas about the lack of just information in Spanish and getting information to people so that they can understand what the signs and symptoms of mental health are and how that was a lack. But do we have that in New Haven when we have such a large Hispanic community? Has there been more effort to...
I've seen more efforts. There's a lot more agencies that help and target the Hispanic population and are able to like print materials. They have more and more clinicians that are bilingual and more people that are able to like translate flyers and just info cards and things like that and hand them out in the community, or even at schools. Like there's a big movement in having like mental health services available in the schools to a lot of the children, sometimes even the families. So it's a wonderful, initiative that has gone and has started.
Are people taking advantage of it though?
That's the second part of that.
So I had one guest, and she spoke about how she never talked to a therapist when she was growing up because she remembered her older sister going to the school therapist. The school therapist calling her mom to let her know that she came in, and her sister got a horrible beating. And she's like, that taught her, like, you do not tell anybody your business. So it wasn't until she was an adult and she recognized that trauma that she actually went to a therapist. And so I'm always interested as to how do you kind of like break that stigma against therapy so that even the kids will actually feel comfortable like going to the therapist at school.
And I think that's more of working with families as a whole, being able to incorporate more like just like what we're having Saturday, like fair and events, and really helping the community understand what mental health is, what is health and wellness, what does that encounter, how do you take care of yourself, like mind, body, and spirit, like everything like that, but really putting more effort in educating the community as a whole. Because we can do we can work with kids in the schools as much as we want, but they might not be completely honest, and they might not talk to us fully until mom or dad or guardian, whoever the caregiver is, will like say like, it's okay, it's okay for you to like talk, or if they even see that their parents are also engaging with the therapist and they're like, oh, my parents trust them, so like I can actually like have conversations. And
what are the legal rules around that? Can therapists talk to children without parental consent? Like if a kid comes to you in school, do you have to go and tell the parent that they came to you?
So for ongoing treatment, yes, there has to be a consent. There has to be like a consent sign that you're able to see this child every week or whenever. If it's like a one-time situation, if there was a conflict in school and they needed to like calm down and talk to someone, not necessarily, because that's just a one situation and that's intervention and making that work, that particular. But if it's ongoing, yes. Like
so if a kid comes to you and say, I want to come here once a week to talk to you, then you have to get parental consent?
We have to. Yes.
Okay, all right. And so is that, are you familiar with how it works inside of the New Haven Public Schools? Like, how do they inform parents that this is available? That's why you're doing health. I got that once I said it, right?
No, because honestly, sometimes parents do not know it's available, and I've encountered situations where, unfortunately, like we end up being part of the treatment plan and everything else because of, there might be a DCF involvement in Department of Children and Family. There was a call made, or a child might have stated that they're feeling suicidal. So now we're getting involved, and now the parents are getting notified, and like it's almost like, okay, now this is happening, like we need a plan, etc. So that's how the parents might access it and might know more about it. I've dealt with families who have came from Puerto Rico when there was like hurricanes and the different mother nature things that were happening there, and when they came here, they had no idea what was going on. We were like try to like engage, and they're like, well, what's going on, what's happening. They didn't know that was access, like you can access it through the school or other ways. The community, especially like in the New Haven community, there's tons of places that provide therapeutic services, and sometimes in home as well. So it's the comfort of the home, which makes it a little bit better for the family, so they can feel comfortable in their own home.
So tell me about the fair that's coming up, the health fair coming up.
So it's Saturday. It's
this Saturday, the 22nd.
Yep. From 12 to 4. It's at the Fairhaven Library, which is right next to the Fairhaven School. On Grand Avenue. And we specifically picked that location because it is Fairhaven has a lot of Hispanic population. So we felt that, it's a place where a lot of people can access this and be aware of it. And we're having like different guests come in, give like little snips of what is mental health and how to take care of yourself. So we're having some like relaxation, how to deal with stress, some yoga incorporation, some other health and wellness areas, and how to help them understand like that. It's not just like, I think a lot of people think old school like therapy, like you're sitting on the couch, everybody's taking notes, like. And I mean,
you go in that room, and you go in that room, and you go in that room. Right.
And sometimes you could incorporate that, but therapy can happen just about anywhere. You can be playing games, board games, and it's a very therapeutic board game. And now we're showing them that through the fair. We're showing them like the different areas of this, and there's different ways. And then we're having other community partners come in to also share about what they offer and how they can access these services.
And so is the purpose of the fair specifically on mental health, or is there other types of focuses incorporated?
It's mainly mental health and wellness as a whole, like whole body, mind, body, soul, everything. So it's I feel like it's all connected. So, if you're not feeling good, you have low confidence. Now you're feeling sad and depressed and you don't understand why. So how can we get to that and change that and help you change that? So helping them see like how they all kind of connected with each other and what services can they like tap into.
So will therapists actually be there on the day, or referral to a therapist during that day?
Yes, and we have, I believe, Clifford Beers, which is an agency in New Haven, and Fairhaven Clinic is also participating, and I believe Hill Health Center may also be coming in. And these are like the major agencies. We also have smaller local agencies that are coming in to share what they offer and what type of work they do. And just talk to like everyone, and we're having like some kids activities and things like that.
So it's going to be for the whole family.
Whole family.
And remind me again the time.
It's from 12 to 4.
12 to 4, and you don't have to make a reservation. It's
free. It's free, no cost, anything.
You can just pop in.
You don't have to stay the whole time.
Okay.
You can. Most of our vendors and people that are coming are going to be there all day, and if they're not there all day, they're going to leave like their information, so you can also like access, that and talk to one of us.
So, what is this a one-time event, or is there anything planned to follow this up?
So, as of right now, it is a one-time event. We have been working and playing with the idea of doing other events or other programming around specifically like Hispanic families, but that's still in the works.
When we do events, so before I ask that question, is it helpful for the non-Hispanic population to come?
Absolutely.
Will it be Spanish and English presentations? How is that going to work?
So most of our presentations are going to be bilingual. Like most of our presenters are bilingual, so they're able to both communicate English and Spanish and share that. The ones that are not, we have a lot of people that are going to also
translators.
So that can help with that. But I believe 3 or 4 of them are all like Hispanic, and Spanish speaking individuals. So they'll be able to share about it.
Okay, so even if you are not fluent in English, you should still come.
Yeah.
Even if you're not fluent in Spanish, you should still come. And it's good information to have.
It is. And all the resources that we're bringing in, they're not just for, the Hispanic and Latino population. It's for everyone, but these are specifically the ones that also really cater to the Hispanic population. Okay. So we're able to say hey, they're able to work with you on Spanish and your language, and they know more your background in that way.
So within the Hispanic Latino community, what is the percentage? In New Haven, we might have more, and it's okay if you don't know exact percentage. The amount of actual Hispanic Latino therapists. Like, do we need an increase? How do we get people to go into being a therapist or a psychologist or social worker?
I would say in New Haven, there's a lot more than in other places, but there's still not enough because often a lot of the places have very extensive, long wait lists to access those therapists that are just Spanish speaking. And now that's another barrier. Now the person and the client, the identified client, has to wait 6 to 8 months sometimes for services, depending on where.
Do people wait that long?
Sometimes.
Really?
Yeah. Sometimes they try to connect others and try to do other programming in the meantime. Sometimes it's a month, sometimes it's 2 months. It depends on the different programs and who's available and what their caseload looks like and their availability.
What about group kind of programs? Is that available? Is that helpful with certain conditions, or is it preferable for people to seek one-on-one therapy?
I think it really depends on the person and the situation that they're going through. Some people do better with groups versus individual therapy, and some diagnoses, some mental health concerns are better addressed in group versus versa, or they're better addressed in individual therapy versus group settings because it might not be beneficial. So I think that it's a case-by-case basis. There isn't a lot of Spanish-led groups in the community, just specifically for Spanish speaking. There's a few, but there's not as much as the counterpart. If there's an English group, they're sometimes not available in Spanish all the time. So what brought that to mind is I used to do a healthy cooking. I used to instruct a healthy cooking class at the Hill Health Center for patients with diabetes. And I had 2 classes. One of them was exclusively Spanish, and one was that was wrong. Spanish is not a culture, a race. One was exclusively Hispanic Latino. Spanish is a language, and I know that. One was exclusive Hispanic Latino, and the other one was English speaking. I don't speak. I have 5 words I remember from school, which is so sad because I took 4 years of Spanish, and I remember 5 sentences. But I had a translator who was there with me, and she would translate everything that I said. And so I know that it's done around physical health. Yes.
And I was curious as to whether or not they do the same for mental health groups.
Not all of them. I would say sometimes there's one maybe group. Let's say if someone has 10 groups that they have for different clients. Maybe one of those groups might be for Spanish speaking clients only. So the ratio is less. Would we want to see more? Of course, because it can help depending on the situation and what the issue is. But
so we have about 5 minutes left to the show. What is some of your parting thoughts that you'd like to leave with people as to how they can access mental health, why they should access mental health, or if they even need it?
Yeah. So a big resource is always 211 is a number that everyone can call, and they do have bilingual individuals that help navigate the different systems, and they provide a lot of help with if you call them and say I might want to see a therapist or something like that, or I'm having XYZ, and they can point you into their direction and give you the resources that are in your community based on what your needs are.
So let me just say, because I actually recently found out that a lot of people don't know what 211 is. So a long time ago, when I was younger, we used to have 411. No matter where you went inside the United States, if you pick up the phone and you dial 411, I don't even know if it still exists, but if you pick up the phone and you dial 411, it was information. Yeah. And so we didn't have, before we had Google, you would dial 411 and say, hey, can I have the number to the pizza shop on Whaley Avenue? And it would tap the person on the other line. It was actually an actual person. It was before AI could answer your questions. It was an actual person on the other line who would be like, okay, because they had, I don't know if they had we didn't have computers back then, so they must have had a phone book in front of them or something.
Yeah, I know.
So, and they would tell you the information. It was information line 411. So here in the city of New Haven, I'm not sure if it's other places.
Yeah, anywhere. Well, I know in Connecticut in general.
Okay, so
I don't know if it's outside of Connecticut. Yes.
Okay, so anywhere in Connecticut, you can pick up the phone or your cell phone, and you can dial 211, and it is like the old 411. You can actually speak to a person, and you can ask them questions about resources. Yes. So everything from, as Samary mentioned, can you tell me where I can find a therapist? Or if you,
shelter,
my kid just swallowed a battery. What should I do? I just took too much of my medicine. Should I go to the hospital? Any kind of thing like that. I smell a funny smell. Should I call the,
and they can give you the numbers and the direction and direct you in the right direction.
Right. I'm suffering from domestic violence. Can you tell me how to get out? I need a shelter. I need help now. Anything like that, you pick up your phone and you dial 211. Yeah. I'm actually really surprised about how many people don't know that. So I just wanted to really clarify that and tell people. I'm not sure if it's in other places either, but it should.
I know.
But it's anywhere in Connecticut. So if you're in Connecticut, all right. So that was a side note. You can dial 211.
So 211 is a great resource. If you have children that are younger, you can always ask the school. They're not, not everyone has as much knowledge in the school, but they usually can put you in the right direction. A lot of the schools in New Haven have access to mental health outside agencies coming into the school. Mm-hmm. So they're able to say here's the information for the person that you can talk to, and here's XYZ.
And is that free for New Haven students?
So for New Haven students, it is free within the school. I know that there's some insurance that sometimes gets billed, but if there's no insurance, there is a way to still access.
So that's important
for children and adolescents. Right. For adults, it's a little more tricky.
Right. So if you have a child that's in need of mental health services, don't let finances be a barrier.
No, there's ways to always incorporate. And so again, if you have children, schools is a great resource. 211 is a great resource. And Google is a great resource. If you have a phone, if you have a computer, you can literally just type in something that you're feeling, or how can I access a therapist or a therapist in New Haven, any of those, or Spanish, you can Google it in Spanish as well. And you can come up with resources and it'll direct you into the right place.
Awesome. Last two things is just remind people one more time about the date, time, and place of the mental health fair, and then tell people how they can get in touch with you if they'd like to.
Absolutely. So the fair is this Saturday, February 22nd. From 12 to 4 at the Fairhaven Library, which is on Grand Avenue. I don't have that, I'm sorry. But it's behind C-Town. So if you know where C-Town is, you can find it. I promise. It's open and available to everyone. Please come by, stop by, ask questions if you have any, take some flyers, anything that we have there available. And then if you have questions about mental health in general and you want to access more mental health, you can always contact us. I work for the agency that I'm connected with is called Monarch Therapy, and our home office basically is in North Haven, but we do in-home work, so we work throughout all of New Haven County as well as outside of New Haven County, but and we do a lot of in-home work, but we do also have an office.
So the address to the Fairhaven, because we have Google now, we don't have to dial 411. Yes. 182 Grand Avenue, just east of Ferry Street, is the Fairhaven Library. And again, the Hispanic Mental Health Fair will be there this Saturday. Stop in. It's for the whole family. If you just want to get information, or maybe you just want to pop in on a meditation or a yoga class, or
fun.
Right.
Try something new. And try for free.
New. Yep. Try something new. Try it for free, and get some information while you're there. Because even if you don't need it right this minute, it is a resource that can come in handy later on. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Thank you, Samary. This was a great conversation. I want to remind you, as you go about your week, be a voice and not an echo. And until next week, I will see you then.